Now we review the 2024 film If. So it's like the film It, only with an F. And it's not a horror movie. Well, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse the hair. I have seen the film If, and I had the option of seeing it or The Strangers Chapter 1. I've never seen The Strangers, and I'm told that movie stinks, and everybody else is reviewing The Strangers, who I follow as a film geek. So I decided to review If, and then I took a nap, and then I had to comb my hair. So here I am, and I have seen If, and If is the story of a little girl played by, believe it's Kylie Fleming. She was in The Walking Dead. I think she played a young Rey Skywalker or Rey Palpatine or Rey whatever it is in The Force Awakens. And, here she is playing the character of Bee. Bee has lost her mother at an early age. Her father is in the hospital, and she is living with Grandma. And in this building in which Grandma lives, there happens to be a man. And it is actually really creepy now that I think about it, that this young woman starts hanging out with this grown man. And why is nobody responsible for her? Oh, God, this film seems suddenly creepy now that I think about it. But anyway, the man is Ryan Reynolds. And he happens to have a very interesting job. He is a recruiter, I guess, a guy who places imaginary friends after they have fulfilled their purpose in other people's lives. So in this world, if you need your imaginary friend, you see your imaginary friend. If you don't need them, you can no longer see them. They just disappear. But they don't stop existing. They go over and stay with Ryan Reynolds, which, let's be honest here. If you had the option of going to work tomorrow or hanging out with Ryan Reynolds, you'd hang out with Ryan Reynolds. That sounds awesome. It sounds like, here it is. She's trying to save them from this life of dereliction, but it's not a derelict life. They hang out with Ryan Reynolds and they go to the carnival. That sounds wonderful. There's a scene where the imaginary friends are just eating cotton candy and popcorn and making balloon animals, and it's just so much fun. So why? Why is the movie? You ask yourself that. But, imaginary friends are creatures of purpose, and they want to help people. So she decides to help Ryan Reynolds place these imaginary friends with new children. And this has almost nothing to do with the plot, because the plot is that she is a little girl trying to deal with her father's illness, and she's already lost one parent, so this has got to be devastating. It's got to be very painful. So if you looked at this film from the standpoint of all the imaginary things are truly imaginary, then yes, this is her way of coping with her depression from her father's illness, is to create an imaginary world where anything is possible. And, it's like, and there's a scene where she does that. Probably the biggest action set piece or the biggest fantasy set piece of the film is that she's at this place where the imaginary friends, I don't know what they do there. They just hang out, or they practice their art, or they sharpen their skills. And, she imagined it as being even more awesome. And there's dragons and knights fighting and all kinds of incredible imaginary creatures. And really, I got a strong Labyrinth vibe from this film, but it wasn't as good as Labyrinth. It did not have the creature design and the lifeness to it. These are CGI images, and whereas you can't say they're not realistic because they're not real things, they don't have the life that particular film have. They don't have the magic, which is kind of sad given the fact that this is a film about the magic of childhood and the magic of imagination, right? So there's one real big problem with this film, is that there is no urgency to it. It's not like, oh my God, you've got to find these imaginary friends, children, or they'll disappear forever. No, I mean, if you don't find them friends, they'll be fine. They'll just go keep hanging out with each other and having a good time, and I don't see the problem with that. So there's that. I will say that the costuming for this film was pretty good. It was a little after school special, but I mean, you look at the clothing the little girl was wearing, and you're like, well, that's really nice clothing. Like, she seems, whoever picks out her clothing has a nice fashion sense and sort of a business casual vibe. So yes, she kind of reminds me of a young Natalie Portman. Only the film I remember the young Natalie Portman in was disturbing. And this is not. So, moving forward, as I say, the sense of urgency here is lost, but there is a very, very poignant concept in this film, is that, look, we live in a world where most of us are lonely. Loneliness has become a thing. And, even if you look at in this room, here's Barry. Before I forget, of course, every 1,000 subscribers I get, I do purchase one of these bracelets from 4Ocean. 4Ocean pulls a pound of trash out of the ocean every time I do that. But, you got Barry here. Barry didn't come with a name. He's a toy. And he's purchased for conservation reasons. The proceeds go towards conservation. But I gave him a name, and I gave him something of a personality. And if you think about it, is he any less of an imaginary friend? Or how about, Randall? You've all met Randall. Randall the rat here. He's a character that I speak through. And Randall, is he or is he not an imaginary friend? So we all have these imaginary friends, and they bridge the gap of loneliness in our modern world. And, at a certain point, well, I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'm not going to go any further with that. But there is a vibe of, if you remember the end of Labyrinth, which I do recommend that movie, same kind of a point. That we all as human beings, we need to step out of reality every now and again. We need to step into a world of fantasy, and we need to remember the joy and magic of being a child. And yes, that's a very beautiful thought in a very sort of mediocre movie. That is what happened if you took two really good films, Labyrinth and say Inception, and made them into a after school special cartoon. So it's a knockoff of these two things that never quite jives. And it's a kids movie in that all is well in the end. We have a satisfying ending. And I will say, like many movies, the ending is kind of the best part. That last act where you see the stories being wrapped up, and even after into the credits where they wrap up even more, and there's a lot of joy and happiness. These are good parts of the movie, but to be honest with you, it drags in the first act. It drags in the first half of the second act. It finally gets going. And, whose movie is this really? Ryan Reynolds, by the way, very underutilized. Very underutilized for this particular film. He doesn't have a lot to do. He isn't given his, typical Deadpool sort of just ridiculous amount of energy there. He is not given the poignancy and the strength of character that he normally has. Although he plays his part well. He does that. Steve Carell, who voices Blue, the big purple monster, yeah, that's a thing, also does his part well. And I enjoyed Blue because I think that if somebody were to imagine me as an imaginary friend, I would probably look a lot like Blue. I'd be big, I'd be hairy, and I'd be fluffy. But of course, the great thing about Blue as a character is that he is so large that he just encompasses the room. He's something that is so incredibly there that, he's not something, it's like if he were in this room, it would be hard for him to step out of camera because he's such a large physically large character. He takes up so much space that this is what he is meant to do. He is made to take up space in an empty world. And that is a poignant thought that probably is just something we analyze afterwards and that people didn't actually put into the thought. So, what does this bring us to? Well, I can't say that this movie is one you have to see in theaters. It's a fun enough movie, but it isn't for kids enough, and it isn't for adults enough. It's not a film that has things for both. It is a film that has not enough for either. So it belongs in the middle of your watch list. If you have children, it is just a little bit above the middle of your watch list. You know, that top 75%, because your kids might just be like, oh, wonderful, yes, funny blue monster or purple monster. But it's not going to land well. And it's just very much there. It is not a bad film. It is an enjoyable film. It's just not a good film. It's not a film that should draw you in and make you want to watch. I mean, I heard another guy who said that this is the first in the a trilogy, and the next film is going to be But the thing is, the next film would be if and or but. You know, so yeah, quadrilogy, if and or but. Anyway, so that wasn't funny either. So yes, middle of the watch list, not a great film, not a terrible film. It will not repulse you. It is fine if you have nothing else to do, but it's just not there. Great idea, poor execution. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear yours down in the comments below. I, of course, am Richard.
Greetings, humans! Your old pal Randall here again, reminding you to comment, like, and subscribe. You see, I got my bracelets from Ferocian, and I got another medal from the Conqueror. Yeah, look at that, see? See? That's got an Easter Island head on it. Because if you can't afford to go to Easter Island, you can go and walk Easter Island virtually by going to the Conqueror. You could not screw up the environment by traveling to Easter Island. You could just get this, plant 5 trees, and then walk on your own and learn about Easter Island, because I send you postcards. And if you comment, like, and subscribe, you can help the guy that owns this channel buy things like this so he can plant trees, and buy bracelets like this from Ferocian so he can pull trash out of the ocean and make a better world for you. And it isn't going to cost you anything. So don't you have something to say? I mean, shouldn't you in the comments down below say how grateful you are that this man has planted so many trees and pulled so much trash out of the ocean and did all those good things for you? No? Ungrateful human? I should eat your face!